Now, tomorrow in East Midlands Today, we start a special series exploring why members of the LGBT community are more likely to suffer from mental health problems. We've been given exclusive access to the LGBT Centre in Leicester, which helps hundreds of people through tough times each year.
The fear of not being accepted, the fear of being rejected, and the impact that that can have on your mental health. I mean, I didn't come out until I was 31, and keeping that kind of fact, that bit of information to myself for all those years does have an impact on quite how you feel about yourself and your self-worth.
Well, that's starting from tomorrow, but before that, tonight at 10:20, we'll be back with your next update. Join us then. For now, though, bye-bye.
Meanwhile, a charity in Leicester says it's having to help so many lesbian, bisexual, gay and transgender people overcome mental health problems that just staying open is a challenge.
The Leicester LGBT Centre has been praised by campaigners from all over the country. And this week we're going to hear from people who say it's changed their lives. For some, it's even been life-saving. Christian Hugill has the first of our special series of exclusive reports.
Meet one of the many groups which gather here every week, the 60+, aptly named Silver Slippers. Giving LGBT people a space to be themselves is just one reason why this centre has been singled out as being particularly special by a man who's thought to be the first author to write a book specifically about LGBT mental health.
As kids, we don't have magical earplugs. We absorb all of the negative kind of thoughts and expressions and hatred that comes from certain areas of society. And so we internalise that homophobia or transphobia or whatever it might be. Then we realise that actually those people are talking about us. And I think a lot of us suppress those feelings. We push those feelings down and it leads to problems in later life.
It's a story that so many here can relate to. The centre's research says more than half of LGBT people in Leicester have suffered from depression. More than a third have had thoughts of self-harm. For Liz, growing up as a lesbian in the 50s and 60s was tough. It still affects her today.
I felt that, well, I was wrong, I was bad. A lot of people talk about families, about relationships. If you're sort of still in the closet ways, you can't talk about yourself, you can't be yourself. So anything I said, I would censor. So I could never be spontaneous and still have difficulty with spontaneity now. And if I'm talking to people, I will watch what I say to straight people, but just be totally open with, I can be myself with gay people.
A short time later, another group arrives called Free to Fly. They're LGBT refugees, and Susan fled to this country after her family in Uganda discovered she was having an affair with a woman.
I was thrown by knife. I have the scar on my leg. I was burned. As you can see, this scar, I still have it here. And
Susan knew a gay man who was killed, and despite being certain she'd face the same fate if she returned home, she was originally told she couldn't stay in this country. The decision was later overturned.
I was scared to see myself going back there where people are being killed. People are being prosecuted in many ways. A lot of us are used to living there in hiding, in fear. They can't come out. Clearly not even to their friends to say, here is who I am.
How grateful are you to have the Free to Fly group, the LGBT Centre?
Even though I have all these problems with me, it makes me kind of forget it. I feel like this is my home. The LGBT Centre staff, the way they welcome us, the way they treat us, it's amazing. It's something I never expect it could happen in my life.
Well, tomorrow we'll be hearing why some say that transgender people are facing the same discrimination that gay people faced 20 years ago. We'll be looking at the Leicester Transgender Centre of Excellence, so don't miss that tomorrow.
That is tomorrow, but now it's time for the sport. Here's Colin. Thanks,
And this week we are looking, as you may remember, at the mental health struggles of thousands of gay, lesbian, bisexual and transgender people. Leicester's LGBT Centre says it's having to help so many that it sometimes actually struggles to cope. Well, tonight, a project only made possible thanks to BBC Children in Need funding, we find that the staff at the centre say it is really saving lives. Christian Hugill has the second of our special reports.
The Leicester LGBT Centre is home to the Young Transgender Centre of Excellence. For some, realising you're homosexual or bisexual can be deeply worrying. But Jamie came to realise he's not actually the gender he was assigned at birth and found that really tough.
Incredibly isolating, especially that young as well. Kind of the things that you're allowed to watch and like TV you're allowed to watch and books you're allowed to read and things, it doesn't have anything LGBT in it because as a child, parents, teachers don't think it's right for kids that young to have any kind of LGBT kind of influence or anything. So I think definitely early on it was just completely isolating. It was particularly things like getting changed for PE and the boys would go to one side, the girls would go to the other side, and I was just kind of left in the middle.
Jamie was born female but identifies and lives as a man. He self-harmed and tried to take his own life, thinking he was the only one who felt so confused about gender identity. In fact, it was through YouTube videos that he started to realise what trans actually means. Then, after talking to his family, he discovered the Young Transgender Centre of Excellence.
I think the project has saved so many kids' lives. I think that's the best way that I can put it. It's a life-saving project.
Do you think it saved your life?
Yeah, definitely.
There is more in the press, I think, about trans people, but I think a lot of it is either factually incorrect or quite extreme. So there's been examples of, you know, we ship 1,500 young people a year off for gender reassignment surgery. That's just not true. You know, there's things about how young people can't possibly know what they really think. And actually that makes a young person feel really small. It makes them feel invalid. It makes them feel like they're not being listened to. And actually then it makes them worry about going to seek professional help.
Some who come here have been kicked out of their homes for coming out as trans. Staff offer counselling to young people, help schools, supports families and, if necessary, point trans people in the direction of medical help. But the wait for that can be agonising. On average, people in the UK who think they might be transgender have to wait 18 months to see a specialist after first being referred by their GP. Nottinghamshire actually has the third longest waiting times in the whole country. Research from LGBT charity Stonewall shows nearly half of all young trans people have attempted to take their own life. So how can we help? Jamie wants to see more education, especially for children.
Just acknowledging that different kind of families exist, different kind of identities exist. It can only be a positive thing. It's not going to make your child trans, it's not going to make your child gay. It's just informing them that this is the world that we live in, these are the people that exist in it. If it had been talked about earlier, I could have saved myself a lot of turmoil in my teenage years. I could have come out earlier and realised that it was okay earlier.
And on tomorrow night's programme, we'll be looking at what it's like for a family to learn that their child isn't actually the gender that they were assigned at birth. That's tomorrow.
Now, though, it's time for sport. Here's Natalie.
Now for the final part of our exclusive series, which looks at some of the issues faced by lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender people across the East Midlands.
Today we're looking at how families cope with the news that their child isn't actually the gender they were born.
Last night we reported that nearly half of all young transgender people have attempted to take their own life. But as Christian Hugill reports, it can be difficult for parents too.
Meet the Lane family from Syston. Angela, Paul, Alfie and his boyfriend Jed. 2 years ago, after a lot of soul-searching and online research, Alfie, who was born female, felt confident enough to tell his mum and dad that he is transgender. After learning their daughter is actually their son, Angela and Paul had a lot of questions for Alfie, this being the first.
How do you know?
Yeah.
And his answer stumped us because we'd say, well, you know, how do you know that you're transgender? And his answer was, how do you know you're straight?
Which is fair point, isn't it, really?
Okay, we just are. And I feel like I'm in the wrong body. I feel as though I am a boy. I simply am a boy, and that was it.
The family was supported by the Leicester LGBT Centre. Some of it was practical, like how do you change Alfie's passport and what do you say to the GP or school? There was some emotional support too. All three were able to talk to others going through the same thing. Angela and Paul stuck by their son, but sometimes things don't work out as well. Some transgender children end up being kicked out of home, and many question whether the child is just going through a phase. That was never a consideration here.
You just know you're a child. It's not a phase. And that's quite insulting, actually, you know, because it's a generalisation and you're not treating that child as a person, you're just treating it as you know, as a child thing. It's fine.
What do they know? They're not old enough to know their own mind, etc.
But they really are.
Jed is also a transgender lad, and as well as being accepted by his own family, he's also now a part of the Lane family too. But outside of home and the LGBT centre, both have had challenges.
I know I've met people when I've been out with my friends or something, or someone's been drunk and come up to you and gone, you know, one of my friends will go, oh, that's a boy, and they'll go, and I think once someone went up and went, are you sure? And I was like, yes, I am a boy, and they were like sort of laughing, going, no, you're not, and I was like, yeah, I'm trans, so you know, you're sort of having to admit that is sort of one of the hardest things, because you want to be able to just pass and be seen as who you are, and they believe you when you say, you know, this is who I am.
I had like some incidents where math teacher was saying like, oh Jed, that's a boy's name, like you're not a boy. I was like, but I am. And it's like, it was really frustrating, and there's a lot of people who like didn't want to call me Jed just because they didn't feel comfortable with it, and that was quite hurtful too.
There has been tough times. Some family friends even stopped talking to Angela and Paul after learning that their son is trans. But the family has stuck together and stuck to a simple principle. Boy or girl, gay, straight or bisexual, actually, it doesn't have to be labelled. In fact, it simply doesn't matter.
You don't love somebody or attracted to somebody by what's between their legs. It's this, and it's the person, it's the heart that you know. So it doesn't matter whether you're boy, girl, it's the love that's there. So, and he taught us that, didn't he? He taught us that, and he's amazing.
Christian Hugill, BBC East Midlands Today, Leicester.
Wise words indeed, and thanks to everyone who's been so open with us over the last 3 nights in Christian's series of reports.
Indeed. If you want any more information from the Leicester LGBT Centre, their website address is on the screen now.